Welcome to the Swish List Podcast, where we talk all things basketball. Hosted by two brothers, Moses and Roman. Let's get into it. Roman, it's episode 3. If you are listening now, we appreciate you being here. Welcome back to the Swish List Podcast.
Welcome.
First and foremost, we're now done with the second round of the playoffs. It's over. We are now at the point where we're not getting basketball every night. I suffered from some withdrawals a couple nights ago. I think it was Saturday night. There was no game.
Yeah.
I turned to my wife and she told me, she's like, so who's playing tonight? Nobody's playing tonight. It's the worst part of the playoffs. The games get better when you have them, but there's not as many games.
I did my workout on Saturday, and then I came home, I take my nap, and then I go lift. After I lift, there's usually a game on at 5:30. So I went upstairs and I turned on the TV, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, there's going to be a break today. There's nobody playing, and we haven't had this in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just so not okay to not have a basketball game on. It didn't feel right.
Now, before we dive into anything that revolves around the second round, America, I need to tell you that I was wrong. I was wrong. It happens from time to time, not very often, but it happened this time. I told you that the Phoenix Suns were going to beat the Denver Nuggets. When I told you that, I didn't know Chris Paul was going to get hurt like he always does. When I told you that, I didn't know DeAndre Ayton was going to get a little elbow in the ribs and decide to bail on his team in an elimination game. I didn't know, America, but I apologize to you because I led you astray. I told you that series was going to go to 7 games. It went to 6, and it ended in convincing fashion in the way that only the Phoenix Suns know how to lose to a European all-star. I'm sorry, America. I let you down. The second place I let you down, I called out Jason Tatum about halfway through the series. I said he needed to play better. I even commented on a couple posts on Instagram. Well, some people kept the receipts and they let me know that I was wrong. And so, America, let me tell you something right now. Jason Tatum, the last 5 quarters of basketball he's played, looks like he's all NBA first team. And I am impressed. We have to forget what happened before that. And we need to focus on game 7 and what happened in the fourth quarter of game 6.
Forget those first 3 quarters. That
Don't
0
look
for
at-
11 start.
Don't look at the first 3 quarters, America. Those quarters don't exist. Jason Tatum is back for probably a couple games before he disappears again. But you know what? I called the man out and he delivered. And so what we do on this podcast is we tell America when we're wrong. I will own that. Now, let's actually talk Celtics 76ers. At this point, Doc Rivers is probably going to get fired. That's the trend coming out of the postseason this year. A lot of really good coaches are getting canned. Milwaukee's head coach fired. Phoenix Suns head coach. He didn't even get to coach Kevin Durant for 30 games, 25 games, and already got fired. Doc Rivers is probably going to be next because, unfortunately, this is the blemish on his coaching career. When it gets to game 7s, he's got a really bad record. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the Milwaukee or Phoenix job because he's a coach that bounces back quicker than just about anyone else. But with how embarrassing that exit was, with some of the comments that Joel Embiid made, calling out the rest of the team outside of James Harden, somebody's got to go. It's not going to be Maxey. It's probably not going to be Tobias Harris. I'm looking at Doc Rivers. A shout out to the Boston Celtics for figuring it out. Jason Tatum came alive, gave us one of the greatest Game 7 performances to ever happen in the history of basketball, which is absolutely incredible. Given the game before where he said humbly, he's one of the best players to play. So I'm very happy for the Celtics. It went exactly how we thought it would, which was going to 7 games and the Celtics pull through.
I was so hyped for this game 7. The first half was great basketball, back and forth buckets. Jason Tatum had 25 in the first half. It was a beautiful game. And then we come out for the second half, 3-point game. I'm expecting more back and forth basketball. And you watch for the first 6 minutes, not even 6 minutes, I think 4 minutes of that third quarter.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they go on a 23-4 run. It was a 3-point game, and then all of a sudden they're up by 20. It just fell apart. James Harden turning the ball over. Joel couldn't make a shot. They just couldn't get anything going through the offense. I think Tobias Harris scored a few buckets.
This has been the trend with MVPs as of late. They really struggle to get past the second round. And for Joel Embiid in particular, this has really been the story. Trust the process has been able to get them to playoff contenders. It's helped him become an MVP. But what is it actually going to take to put them over the hump? I don't know, because coming in, they were the 3rd best team. And here we are on this side of the playoffs, and they still looked like they were the 3rd best team. They were not able to beat the Celtics, a team that was ahead of them in the standings coming in. They were the favorites in the series, and it played out exactly how we expected it would. Lakers, Golden State. This one makes me happy because we nailed it.
You
We
called
nailed it
it
again.
exactly right.
We called Lakers in 6, and I think at this point we have a formula for how the Lakers are able to win playoff series. They go all in on game 1. They sacrifice game 2 because they're trying to split on the road. They win at home games 3 and 4. They give up game 5, and they're planning on closing out the series in 6. It's a formula that's worked now 2 rounds in a row, and I would expect them to try to continue that when they play Denver. LeBron James gave us an incredible performance in game 6, and then he kept the receipts for Jermichael Green, letting the people know exactly how he feels. Nothing but class coming from Golden State, as to be expected. A great playoff run, but like they said, this wasn't a championship team. The way that Jordan Poole played, you didn't really stand a chance. You needed someone to ignite that second team. The bench guys, the others for the Lakers, outplayed the others for Golden State. And even though Rui Hachimura may not have been the guy in this series, you got great performances from players like Lonnie Walker. D'Angelo Russell had great moments. Austin Reeves had great moments. Even Vanderbilt had some moments early in the series with defense. So the Lakers now have a formula for how they are going to win playoff series. They have not lost at home yet, which is incredible. The sky is the limit for the Lakers, and you better believe we were right about the series.
One of the announcers mentioned this. The Lakers hadn't lost at home in 6 weeks plus or something like that. They've been perfect at home for a long time now. And your formula is exactly what's happening. Since they know they're going to be the lower seed regardless of who they play, it's been let's steal one game on the road. We can win our games at home, obviously, and then the series is basically over. All they have to do is steal one game. It was cool to see Steve Kerr go down. It's the first time he's ever lost to a West team.
Miami versus the Knicks. This went just how we thought it would. Miami had the advantage when it came to coaching. They had the best player on the floor. They had the more cohesive team. They may not have had the best all-around talent, but they were a better team. Not to mention, playing in Miami is so difficult to do in the playoffs. You know how I feel about the Knicks. Knicks fans are the Cowboys fans of the NBA. So it's no surprise that they were a step above mediocrity and got bounced in the playoffs, just like the Dallas Cowboys. But with that being said, you got to be very impressed with what the Knicks have been able to do this year, and especially what Jalen Brunson has been able to accomplish. They won a playoff series. They're competitive again. They're going to be able to retool, and we'll see where they go from here. Hopefully it's up. Miami has the best coaching right now in the playoffs. The journey this man's been on and the crime that it is that he has not won a coach of the year is crazy to me. So shout out to Miami putting away the Knicks.
Jalen Brunson really showed up. He's that guy. Jalen Brunson is really good. And Stephen A. Smith was talking about this at halftime. One of the biggest Knicks fans I know. Julius Randle was very bad.
Yeah.
Very, very bad in that game. He was talking about having him sit and having Obi Toppin in the game. Like he was trying to make a situation work where Obi Toppin would play over Julius Randle. This guy is an all-star. He just made NBA All-Third team, and you have an NBA analyst saying that he should be sitting the bench for the start of the third quarter of their elimination game. These guys' playoff experience really showed up. Julius Randle didn't show up. RJ Barrett didn't really show up. A lot of these role guys didn't really show up, and Jalen Brunson paid for it. He got his points, but they ended up losing the game. And then on the other side, the role players for the Heat played really well. I know they only won by 3, but these guys like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent really look like they know their role and they know how to play basketball out there. They look like playoff performers.
Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love are given extremely valuable minutes as well. They do what they do well, and they know where their strengths are. And to your point with Strus and Vincent, everybody seems to play their role and trust that it's going to be enough. If they show up on defense, if they win the hustle plays, and if they played their role, they're going to win the game. And honestly, Miami looked like they out hustled the Knicks time in and time out. And so a lot of that's on the shoulders of guys like Julius Randle, because the Knicks definitely had the size advantage in the series and they were not able to capitalize on that. But this is about what you expect from Julius Randle. I don't think he can go any higher than where he's at right now. This is just the reality. Nuggets, Suns.
We were both wrong. I mentioned that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant were both just going to go off. If one of them doesn't have 30 points, the other's going to have 40 and they'll be fine. But man, when they needed to show up, it just kind of fell apart. And I don't know if it was because of the chemistry or just some off nights, but I mean, even at home to be down 30, just like last year, I don't know how Devin Booker comes into that game and performs like that. By halftime, his plus minus was minus 30. fatigue.
It's fatigue, man. It's fatigue. Look what this guy had to do for 2 series.
It's true. Can we put that on that game? I know he's fatigued, but this is a guy who went to the finals. It's not like he hasn't gone through this before.
Yeah, but the output that he had to give with Chris Paul not playing, with Ayton not playing,
That's true. He did
it
play
was
the point guard role that series when Chris
there
Paul
was
got
just
hurt.
no way that he was going to be able to maintain that level. Even if they won that series, at some point, the candle's going to go out. This is a team that they didn't really get to play together very much going into the postseason. And I believe that they're going to make some moves in this offseason to try and get the role players they need to go to the next level. There's already rumors that they're going to be shopping Chris Paul, trying to get out of that contract as much as they can. If they do, that gives them the cap space to be able to sign 2 to 3 role players to really level out the roster. You know, when you're looking at Jokic having a great game in that final game, he's going up against backup centers. He's not even playing a starter. So of course he's going to go crazy. There was no chance Phoenix was getting out of that game when you let the Nuggets best player play against your backups. That was a recipe for disaster. This guy's a 2-time MVP. You put a backup on an MVP, that's what's supposed to happen. I'm looking at DeAndre Ayton, and I think that he chose not to play in that game because he's done with the Phoenix Suns. And what sucks is Monty Williams gets fired, and I think DeAndre Ayton leaves as well. It reminds me of the Utah Jazz when Jerry Sloan left and they traded Darren Williams. Now, obviously, the Phoenix Suns are not going to go into mediocrity like the Utah Jazz did for years and years until they were able to rebuild. But it feels like you had two forces that were opposing each other. And instead of just picking one, you pick the coach or you pick the player, you kept them together, and now you're going to lose them both, which is unfortunate. I don't know if I want Ayton on my roster if I'm trying to win a championship. So it may be the best move long term for the Phoenix Suns.
Them not being able to play enough together before the playoffs. Kevin Durant only played 8 games in the regular
Yeah, because
season
he had
with
the
his team.
injury too.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it is a chemistry issue. And if you can't play with one of your players who's going to have the ball the majority of the game for long enough, it's not a recipe for success. Scoring the ball can only get you so far.
Yeah. What I'm not going to do is go after Kevin Durant and talk about how he hasn't been able to win anything since da 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 da. Look, if that were the case, explain to me why the Denver Nuggets were sending double teams to Kevin Durant. If he's so washed, why are they sending the double? Mike Malone's a great coach. He wouldn't be sending a double team at Kevin Durant if he was washed. So let's do our picks for this round. I will lead out. We're going Lakers versus the Denver Nuggets. I believe in the Lakers formula. I am taking the Lakers to beat the Denver Nuggets in 6 games. This series comes down to the matchup between Jokic and Anthony Davis. And we're going to put AD's defense on the line, and we're going to see how much he can shut down Nikola Jokic. Draymond Green talked about in this podcast that you have one of 2 options when it comes to Jokic. You can try and stop his scoring, or you can stop his passing, but you're not going to be able to stop both. Well, will the Lakers others be able to stack up really well against Denver? I believe they do. And so if AD can make Jokic score bad points, this series goes the way of the Lakers. They've got enough young guards to be able to match up with some of the wing players. And I don't know how much faith you can put in Michael Porter Jr. to really show up consistently game after game. So give me the Lakers in 6. Following their championship formula, the Lakers will not lose at home as they run through the Western Conference.
I'm going Lakers as well. I'm going Lakers in 7. This is just like last series. You went 6.
7.
I'm going 7. If it goes to a game 7, I don't think LeBron can lose. The Nuggets are good enough to make this a game 7. It's going to go to 7 games. This is going to be a home battle this series. But the Lakers steal game 7 there. LeBron's going to do his usual. And then we see a player like D'Lo really show up this series. But Jamal Murray, if the Lakers do this starting lineup where they don't start Jared Vanderbilt, Jamal Murray is going to have a great series.
If you let that man go off, he will send you home. If you let Jamal Murray go crazy, he will send you home and you'll lose by 20. The Lakers let guards do this. They let Desmond Bane do it in the first round. They let Steph do it. LeBron doesn't even close out with a hand up oftentimes on these guards like they're not NBA players.
He wouldn't do it against Steph Curry.
It's unbelievable. It's because LeBron wants to be Steph's best friend. The series is going to be fun. A bubble rematch is what we want to see because, hey, man, it's like we said, the
bubble matters. All
We
these
told
teams
you
have the
guys.
same cores. I don't want to hear anything about these role players and how it's completely different. These teams are the same cores. It's the same 2 players on every single team.
Yes, sir.
I don't understand how you can discredit this at all.
Roman, don't worry. LeBron haters will always find a way to discredit LeBron James. Just give them time. They'll find a way. But the reality is that the bubble mattered. It was real basketball. It's evident now in the 4 teams that are here today. And what you're going to see is the same thing you saw happen in the bubble. I'm calling it right now. The Lakers are going to win it all. I know this isn't a shocker to hear someone say this, but I'm making the prediction now. The Lakers are going to win it all.
People say that we just like are LeBron lovers. I don't think we are. I think
Yeah.
we can just appreciate the greatness that this man is for the game.
100%.
I don't believe it as we're big Lakers fans or anything like that. We know that the talent is there and we know how good LeBron James is.
People just get mad when you say good things about LeBron James. It's because people are insecure, okay? If you're listening to this right now and you got a little bit upset because we said LeBron James is a great player, it probably means there's something inside of you that you need to look at and just digest why you have such a problem with the fact that LeBron is actually one of the best players to ever touch a basketball. And it's okay to say that. It's okay to say he's having the greatest year 20 in the history of mankind. And I don't know if you're ever going to see a player be able to do what this man is doing at this level. And when he wins this championship, I can't wait to hear what you have to say next.
Okay, so when they win this championship, according to you, with the numbers that these two players are putting up, who gets finals MVP?
They probably still give it to LeBron, honestly. They
I
probably
mean,
would
you
still,
kind of have
they
to.
probably still give the finals MVP to LeBron. And if they don't, that's the thing that people use against LeBron's legacy is they go, and win the finals MVP, right? Like that's
MJ's
what
got 6 rings, 6 finals MVP. What about LeBron?
yeah.
5 rings, 4 finals MVP, right?
He got carried by Anthony Davis. It's like, come on, bro. You watched the games just like I did. You watched the games just like I did. I'm not saying LeBron's carrying AD. I think they're equally yoked and they're getting the job done.
I had another question about this series.
Yep.
So in game 6, we saw a different starting lineup. Jared Vanderbilt came off the bench.
Yes.
So with this series, do you see them starting Jared Vanderbilt to guard Jamal Murray, or do you think they go with Schroeder as their point guard?
It seems like Darvin Ham chooses defense first and then starts moving the minutes to who has the hot hand. So whether or not that trend continues in this series, it all comes down to comfort. Schroeder got ejected in that game 6. That is a factor as well. Vanderbilt, he has not been good offensively. Honestly, it feels like a coin flip trying to make that decision, but it wouldn't surprise me if he goes, hey, these players have been hot on offense. Let's keep it moving. Or if he says, we're going to come out and try and set the tone on defense. We're going to hit the reset button like we normally do, and we're going to make adjustment progressively through the series. What I do love about the Lakers is it feels like the role players are bought in to just winning. Anthony Davis talked about how a lot of these guys have never even been to the playoffs or made it this far. I really appreciate guys like Lonnie Walker and some of these other players. Their minutes may fluctuate. You're seeing Troy Brown Jr., his minutes are virtually gone, which I agree with because I think he's been the worst player for the Lakers on the bench. So I think that was a good adjustment. But these guys have all stayed locked in and they just want to win. So it allows Darvin Ham to make these adjustments and these guys still come in and play at their best.
It's going to be like one of those game time decisions.
Yeah.
It worked well for them in game 6, but I could see him saying, okay, Vando, you're going to get the start here. Or even if he brings him off the bench, if Jamal Murray comes out scoring, puts him in the game.
We look at the other side, it's Boston versus Miami. I want to break down this matchup a little bit. If you're looking at coaching, Miami overwhelmingly has the advantage. Boston has the player advantage at just about every single positional matchup, including the bench. I believe the Celtics are going to take care of business pretty quickly in this series. It would not surprise me if Jimmy Butler runs out of gas by the time this series is over. I don't believe you're getting the same playoff Jimmy Butler against the Celtics that you did against Milwaukee, simply because of how many games he's had to play. So I'm going to take the Boston Celtics in 5 games. It's aggressive, but I believe that Jason Tatum has found the momentum he needs. He's probably going to have a clunker in game 3. That first game in Miami, I don't think he's going to play well, but they bounce back and they end the series at home in 5. They do what they need to do to go back to the finals. I'm taking the Boston Celtics winning this series despite the coaching advantage that Miami has. 5 games.
This is going to 7, in my opinion. With the injuries that Jimmy Butler's been facing, The Celtics take it in 7. We see a very similar round to what we saw last year. A lot of back and forth, super good series, super good game 7, especially game 7, in my opinion. In game 7, we see a great game, but the Celtics pull off the win.
Who's your X factor in the series?
Al Horford's going to come up big for this team. The
Okay.
way he hit shots versus the 76ers last series, they were all timely, really needed those threes. It seemed like anytime the 76ers were going on a run, this guy would pull up, contested three, knock down to cut the lead to 6 or something like that. So he plays great defense in the post. Bam had some great games versus the Knicks. Al Horford does a great job if he's even guarding Bam. I don't know if he's going to be guarding him, but if he is, Al Horford's going to be that X factor that takes this team over the hump against the Heat.
My X factor is going to be Jaylen Brown. I think it's the easy choice. I don't believe that Max Strus is going to be able to have the open looks that he had in the last couple series, because I think that you're going to get a Jaylen Brown that's very much so locked in on the defensive end. This is what I don't love about the narrative around the Celtics. Jason Tatum over the last couple games should have cemented himself as the guy for the Boston Celtics. We shouldn't even be having this conversation anymore. And yet here we are. If Jaylen Brown plays well, then the conversation becomes, man, who's 1A, 1A, 1B? I'm just tired of it. Just let these guys be teammates. Let it be Jason Tatum's team. It's okay. Jaylen Brown's going to have a really good series. I believe you're going to see a drop in Strus's numbers, and it's going to be a direct impact from JB. He's going to have some big-time games, and that's my main reason why I'm taking the Boston Celtics. It's going to be hard to tell what happens with the bigs, but Miami doesn't have great bigs anyways, which is very favorable for the Boston Celtics because they can go with a larger lineup to be able to match up with K-Love and Bam, or if they need to go small ball, they've got the players to do it. They're flexible when they need to be. Boston in 5. We're right. We get the most classic matchup in all of basketball, potentially in all of sports, and that's Lakers versus Celtics. The scriptwriters did a good job. They literally gave us the bubble, 4 teams, and then we're going to get Lakers Celtics.
It seems too good to be true, because why didn't it happen the year after? Or why not 2 years after? Like, okay, 3 years later, all 4 of these teams are going to still have their same main players and come back and make it to the finals. It's just a little bit too perfect 3 years later.
Let's talk about the Golden State Warriors. This has been a buzz topic across NBA media. They are the dynasty of this generation right now. My first question to you is, who had a worse series, Jordan Poole or Klay Thompson?
Jordan Poole. Oh, definitely. He was so bad.
So with that being said, Klay's got 1 more year, and he wants to be re-signed for as much money as he can get. Jordan Poole is coming off a bad postseason. If you're Golden State, what do you do next?
You start shopping these players out. I mean, I don't want to say Klay is on a downfall, but this is not the same Klay that we've seen in years prior. You can just tell he's not the same player. And yes, he's still one of the greatest shooters in the league, but he doesn't offer up what he used to. And I think the Warriors management is definitely going to see this. So I see them shopping these players out. You can get so much for these 3 guys, Draymond, Klay, and Jordan Poole. The amount of
You're
stuff
you're not re-signing Draymond.
He's what makes Steph work a lot of the time. The way Draymond plays makes him work. That's the 1 out of the 3 that I'm saying that they could possibly keep.
You keep Draymond Green.
Klay, I think they could still get a lot for Klay. And Jordan Poole is still on an uprise in his career, but the way he played in this last series, it doesn't seem like it's working really well. I think I saw a stat that said the first game he had like 29 points, and then throughout the other games, he never even got up to combining for that amount of points. It just doesn't look good for Jordan Poole this series. So I could definitely see them getting rid of him and getting some pieces for him for sure.
If you're shopping any pieces on the roster, I think it's Jordan Poole. He's the youngest. He does have upside, even though he did have a bad postseason. This postseason, with Draymond Green, I think it just comes down to, what's he willing to take? We don't know. We really don't know what he's looking for in free agency. Of course, there's a lot of people that say that he wants to team up with LeBron and play for the Lakers. But the reality is, I don't know if anyone quite knows what he's looking for going into next season. It sounds like he wants to play for Golden State, but the number does matter. And we don't know what his number is or what his expectation is. With Klay Thompson, you talk about Draymond Green being a key reason why Steph's been successful. You want to get rid of Steph's running mate through their entire championship runs. The Splash Brothers, that's a 2-man show.
Is it always though? It's not always a 2-man show.
I don't think that Klay had a good series, but you cannot tell me that breaking up the Splash Brothers is not going to have an impact on Steph Curry.
Oh, it definitely will. Will it be worth it? Yes, with the amount of stuff they can get for Klay. Yes.
Klay's in the final year of his deal. he's got to know that nobody's going to pay him top dollar. Or maybe I'm out of my mind thinking that nobody would pay him top dollar. I wouldn't. If I'm working with Klay Thompson, I want to figure out how to get a piece from Jordan Poole that's an effective starter. And I try and transition Klay to a bench role, and I bring in somebody to make us a little bit more athletic in the starting lineup. Wiggins obviously is an extremely athletic forward. Kevon Looney is able to be your rebounder. You still have Steph as your primary scorer. If you can bring Draymond back and you can get an athletic young player that you can insert into the starting lineup, not someone you're expecting to give you that scoring off the bench, maybe you can look for that from a guy like Klay Thompson, who has a history of being more consistent for the franchise outside of this last playoff series. That might be the move for me.
DiVincenzo was great. I don't know. He didn't play enough, in my opinion. He played really well for the minutes he got, and I think he should have got more.
Kerr
So I
went
think
with his
that's the type of
guys.
player.
Kerr went with his guys.
When they were down, DiVincenzo came in and put up numbers. He got to the hoop. He hit his shots. So I think DiVincenzo plays a big role in that team next year.
I can't believe we're here again. John Morant can't keep doing this to himself, man. Like at some point, who in your circle is letting you continue to make these decisions? I understand that John Morant is a young guy. And there's people arguing, is what he's doing illegal or not? Here's my thing. There are plenty of choices you can make that are legal and are irresponsible. And John Morant is finding himself in that category right now. He may be making decisions that are not illegal, but they certainly are irresponsible. And it's costing him and his team games. So, what does this guy actually care about? Because he told us on national television after going to that rehab for the weekend that this isn't who he is. This isn't an indicator of who he is as a person. These things are going to stop. He loses in the playoffs and within a couple weeks is back to doing the same thing as before. So, what does Ja actually care about, man? Because he legitimately could walk out of this league as a household name with over $400 million in his pocket easily. But instead, he wants to be a thug. I don't get it, man. I can't understand why a guy with so much right at his fingertips is willing to just throw it all away for what?
He continues to try and act like he's so hard, and he only makes it worse for himself. Like, I don't know if he's trying to get approval from certain people or if it's not really intentional and he just keeps finding himself in these situations. But after the first or second time, he should have just stepped back, taken a look at his whole situation, the people in his circle, and realized, okay, I'm in the wrong. As many times as you want to say, this isn't me, this isn't what I do. Sometimes you got to just admit that you did something wrong and move on from that. But I think he's struggling to move on from that. And like you said, the people in his circle are not helping. Why are you doing a live stream if you even have a gun in the car? Like, why would you do that? He knows what could have possibly happened. And, his boy flashes the camera over there. Why would you even do a live stream? Like, why would you be okay with that? The moment you see that, it's like, stop. Like, don't do that. I think Ja forgets the position that he's in a lot of the time when he's in these situations. He's one of the faces of the NBA. You can't keep doing this if you want to have a career playing basketball. This is what he's worked for. You hear all these stories about what he had to go through as a kid and all the workouts that his dad put him through. And he's just ruining his name by continuing to do dumb things.
It feels like today people want to do what they want to do, but they don't want to have to deal with the consequences. They don't feel like they should have to pay the price for any of their actions. But this is reality. These billionaire owners, they will make you a standard, and that's what you don't want to be. The standard right now was Gilbert Arenas. We saw what happened with that guy. They gave you an 8-game suspension and they rushed you back because it was great for television, and you threw it in their face. Well, watch what happens. And this has nothing to do with whether or not what he was doing was legal. That's not the conversation here. What the conversation is your actions have consequences. What you are doing is irresponsible. You have to deal with what costs ensue. It feels like everybody around John Morant's got to be yes men, where they just agree blindly with whatever he says because he's probably paying everybody's bills right now. And when you reach that level, you've got to have somebody in your corner that's just going to be honest, that is man enough to tell you, hey, man, you shouldn't do this. I want John Morant to be successful. Ja Morant is good for basketball. The Memphis Grizzlies are good for basketball. And what I don't want to see is a Memphis Grizzlies team with no Ja Morant for 50 games, 80 games, 25 games. I don't even care what the number is. I want to see the best players play basketball.
Ja's just so fun to watch. As somebody who enjoys the regular season a lot, it really hurts. You see it happen with Miles Bridges. I liked watching him play. He was on the come up, one of the more exciting players in the NBA. This is the type of guy who chose to do the wrong thing, and most likely it's ruined his career. We may
Yep.
see him come back next season, but like what just happened there,
It
it's
cost him
gone.
the max contract.
It's costed him his whole career. And the NBA is willing to do that if you choose to do dumb things that may ruin their image.
Okay, Roman, we had some discussions last week. We talked about Chris Paul, Jason Kidd. We discussed different players as we went through our Mount Rushmore of basketball. And one of the biggest conversations that came up was the difference between rings and MVPs. What do we value more? Ring culture, how we feel about it. So here's the question: what do you value more, rings or MVPs?
I think it depends on the context. If it's just a debate of a player, we rely on the ring debate a lot more because it's like, did this player win? In that context, rings matter more because you can be the best player for 82 games and go get that MVP, but can you go out there and be the winner? Can you beat everyone, which
Yeah.
is the ultimate goal? And we see this a lot with the MVP award. I think the last player to win an MVP and then go with the title was Steph Curry. I'm pretty sure that was the last person to do it. So there's a lot of these guys who go win the MVP and get kicked out in the second round, kicked out in the first round. So for me, the ring matters more because the ultimate goal of playing an entire season is to win a ring, is to be the best, not just the best team, but the best player. And if you want to be the best player, you have to be that winner.
The MVP award has gotten more and more confusing as we've moved through the last 10 years of basketball because it's so narrative driven now. What's happened is we're rewarding players, and that MVP award is not resulting in champions. And that probably makes ring culture worse, to be honest, because there's some statistics floating around about the last 5 MVPs versus the 5 previous MVPs and the number of championships. You've got Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Harden, Westbrook. And prior to that, you had Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Derrick Rose, and overwhelmingly, the number of rings in the previous 5 versus the current 5 is a problem. And I do have to agree with you, right? With players playing the least number of regular season games that they ever have, it's that much harder to place value on regular season success. You now have to look so much more at the playoffs because you're expecting players to go to the next level. It's what everyone's been preparing for the entire regular season, and you're going to make that miracle run for a championship. It's the same conversation with quarterbacks and Super Bowls. We act like ring culture is so toxic. When we talk about the NFL and we talk about these quarterbacks, guess what the conversation comes down to? It comes down to Super Bowls. Hey, how well can this guy throw the football? How well can he do XYZ? And how many rings does he have? How many Super Bowls did he get to go to? It's the same conversation in the NBA, but because the sport is more of a level playing field, you're talking about it for all of the players, not just one position. And so this doesn't go away. It's not going to just magically disappear. You can talk about win shares all you want, but there's analytics and there's also manalytics. You got to be able to put up when it matters most. And if you do, the analytics will support it. So rings over the course of time, I believe are going to become more valuable because we're already making the MVP worth less and less and less as the years go on. So we're making this conversation even harder moving forward.
When it comes to rings, it's who is the best winner when it comes to playing as a team? Who can go and win? But when we think of MVPs, it's more that debate is which player would you take in a one-on-one? Which player is better at basketball? You're taking more of an MVP type guy. Whereas if you want to win, you're taking a guy who has a ring rather than an MVP.
If I gave you the option, you can pick the player. He has the best regular season or the best postseason. Who would you pick?
The best postseason.
And that's all that matters. All right, Roman, I got a fun game for you. The NBA announced their all NBA first, second, and third team. What I want you to do is pick one player from each team to create the strongest core you possibly can.
Okay. First team, I've got Shea, Luca, Jason Tatum, Giannis, and I've got Joel.
Second team's Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown, Jokic, Mitchell, and Curry. Third team is Julius Randle, LeBron James, Sabonis, Fox, and Lillard.
Well, I feel like this is easy, but I don't know if these players are going to blend well together. This is where it gets tough. I want to just go Giannis, Jokic, and LeBron. That's obvious to me.
You're
Those are
going
just,
Giannis, Jokic, and LeBron.
yeah.
I don't think that's a very cohesive unit. You're losing a lot of shooting.
Well, we
putting-
didn't mention who our role players were going to be.
Yeah, but we're talking about the strongest core. Let me give you a core that's a
You're
little
telling
bit
me
stronger.
those three would not be the strongest core. Are you kidding me?
As your big brother, I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
you covered.
All right.
Okay. We're taking Embiid from the first team, Steph Curry from the second team, and LeBron from the third team. That is the most cohesive unit.
I like my three.
You like your three. Well, you always do. Well, let's hear what the comment section has to say about it. Whose three are you taking? If you think we both got it wrong, I want to hear who you choose. You can take one player from the first team, second team, and third team. Build your strongest core of three players and tell me if they can beat ours. Second half of the second round, it's another episode of Hero and Zero. Roman, who was your hero for the second half of the second round?
Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum won the series for the Celtics. Those last 5 quarters won the series. Going into both of these games, I was worried. I think everybody was worried. Jason Tatum has not been playing very well. He went into the fourth quarter of game 6 with an awful performance. And then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, he had almost 20 points. He won them that game 6 and then proceeded to score half their points in game 7. I don't know if I can go anybody. He's been the best player this week.
For me, I was thinking about, is it Anthony Davis? Who could it possibly be? And then I remembered there's a guy in Denver that's a 2-time MVP, and his name is Jokic. I have to take the Joker, not just because of the numbers that he put up, but he beat the Suns starting center into submission. That's right.
It made him quit.
He made him quit. Jokic made him quit. And then when he was playing against the backups, he showed exactly what happens when you put a backup on an MVP. He balled out like he should have. Jokic was the easy choice for me here. I'm not somebody that gives Jokic as much leeway as others, but we have to stay as objective as we possibly can. And I respect what he was able to do throughout that series. So Jokic is my choice. My zero has to be Jordan Poole. If Golden State was going to be able to beat the Lakers, they needed their marquee players to show up in big games. Jordan Poole was a huge miss this year in the playoffs. He went from scoring 20 a game to barely scoring 20 in 4 games combined. That is a huge problem. Jordan Poole was an absolute miss this series. He probably should have spent more time focusing on the Lakers and less time on spending money on Ice Spice. So he's the zero for me this week.
My zero is going to be Joel Embiid. This guy is
Embiid?
Joel Embiid, the MVP of the league, who scored 15 points in that game 7. He showed up on the defensive end. He did what he normally does, but when it came down to it, he couldn't score the ball. Al Horford had him on clamps, blocking multiple shots. This is one of the guys who was in that 30-point-a-game club.
Yeah.
Year. He couldn't score the ball. This is the MVP of the league. We've seen Joel in the playoffs multiple times come into these series. When it comes to an elimination game, they just can't pull it off. And this was his year to really show, okay, I won MVP. Let me go out there and at least make it to a conference finals. He couldn't do it.
I wish that Embiid at his size would spend less time trying to flop and get calls at the 3-point line and more time absolutely terrorizing his competition. Because if he could have put a couple of bigs in foul trouble, he's a game breaker every single time he's on the floor.
This is what we saw in this series. I think the Celtics recognized that because they did a lot of switching. Marcus Smart was guarding him a lot of the time.
Oh my God.
And they didn't even bother to give him the ball in the post. When you have a 6'4" defender on you in Marcus Smart, I know he's a great defender, defensive player of the year. I'm just like, this is 7-foot Joel Embiid. Why can't he just take advantage of these matchups? He's the better, bigger player.
But at some point, you can't just point the finger at everybody else. When Jason Tatum just dropped 51, you gave him the opposite and scored 15. And then you jumped into the post-game press conference and said that me and James, we need more help. Sir, James Harden had more turnovers than assists in game 7. You two needed to play better. You're the MVP of the league. You scored 15 points. PJ Tucker almost had more points than you in the first quarter. You got to take some responsibility for what happened. All right. Our random player generator is going to give you 3 famous NBA players, and you tell me who you would start a franchise with. Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan.
LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Pierce, John Havlicek.
Paul Pierce.
Carmelo Anthony, Bob Cousy, Hakeem Olajuwon.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Dirk Nowitzki, Vince Carter, Blake Griffin.
Oh, Dirk.
Anthony Davis, David Robinson, Tony Parker.
Anthony Davis.
Derrick Rose, Dirk Nowitzki, Al Horford.
Derrick Rose.
Oh. Michael Jordan, Dwayne
Michael
Wade,
Jordan.
Julius
Michael Jordan.
Erving.
Michael Jordan.
Kyle Lowry, Klay Thompson, John Stockton.
John Stockton.
Patrick Ewing, Pau Gasol, Chris Paul.
Chris Paul.
Carmelo Anthony, Blake Griffin, Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley.
Kevin Durant, Oscar Robertson, Kawhi Leonard.
Kevin Durant.
Magic Johnson, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Kareem.
Whoa. Kevin Garnett, Julius Erving, or Jerry West.
KG.
Tim Duncan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird.
No. This is bad. That is really tough. I gotta go the cap again. Kareem.
Draymond Green, DeAndre Jordan, Pau Gasol.
Draymond.
All right, that's it. Roman, thank you for playing. We used an AI generator to give us 3 NBA players, and I pick who I would start my franchise with.
Karl Malone, Magic Johnson, Kevin Garnett.
Magic Johnson.
Paul Pierce, John Havlicek, Bob Cousy. We got a Celtics right here.
Havlicek.
LaMarcus Aldridge, Karl Malone, DeAndre Jordan.
Karl Malone.
Anthony Davis, Kyle Lowry, Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal, please.
Okay, we're bringing Shaq back. Chris Paul and Charles Barkley.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Carmelo Anthony, Tony Parker, Oscar Robertson.
Carmelo Anthony.
Wilt Chamberlain, Paul Pierce, Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant.
Oscar Robertson, Vince Carter, Carmelo Anthony.
Carmelo Anthony.
Chris Paul, Julius Erving, Larry Bird.
Larry Bird.
Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki.
Kobe Bryant.
James Harden, Derrick Rose, Chris Paul.
Derrick Rose.
Derrick Rose, Moses Malone, Klay Thompson.
Moses Malone.
Okay.
I have to.
Jason Kidd, Ray Allen, Baron Davis.
It's Jason Kidd or Ray Allen. Ray Allen. I don't feel good about that one, but Ray Allen.
Vince Carter, Karl Malone, Rick Barry.
Give me Vince.
Tracy McGrady, Paul Pierce, Dwayne Wade.
Tracy McGrady.
Last one. Dennis Rodman, Jermaine O'Neal, Alonzo Mourning.
Alonzo Mourning. Wilt's a tough one. When you find clips of Wilt, it's amazing because it's so hard to do. But there's a clip of Wilt and he's on a late night TV show and he's talking about Shaq. He talks about Shaq the way Shaq talks about today's NBA players, where he says, I love his game. He plays physical, but I benched over 500 pounds. He wouldn't be able to do that against me. And when you hear Shaq on TV, he says a lot of the same stuff. If I was playing in this league, I'd score 50 easy. I do this, I do that. It's funny how generationally all this stuff just continues to play out.
Why do you think that happens?
Well, nobody wants to admit that somebody younger than them is better than them. It's like the oldest brother doesn't want to admit his little brother could beat him in basketball. That's why I haven't admitted it yet, even though it's probably true. I'm not going to admit it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this is not a
Like that.
confession. But Wilt's going to go out there and he's going to say, I've scored 100 points in a game. There's no way Shaquille O'Neal can do anything against me in my prime. And there's no way we're ever going to find it out. Anything else you want to say, Romani Jones?
Okay. With me, for our podcast listeners, I decided to cut my hair after 10 years of having basically a faded fro. New Roman.
I'm pretty disappointed you didn't let me cut your hair on the podcast. That would have been amazing.
One of our videos.
Because of one of our takes while I'm cutting your hair would have been legendary. Instead, you let our father give you a boozy fade. Dad, I know you're listening to this. I'm blaming you. This is your fault.
It's your fault, Dad. We could have made this entertainment.
We could have made
we
this
didn't.
entertainment. You robbed us of the opportunity.
You robbed us, Dad.
Hopefully our miracle streak can continue. We have been able to accurately predict the vast majority of the playoffs, and that's why you come to listen to the Switch List podcast. But seriously, thank you for listening. Episode 3. We'll be back next week with a 4th. We appreciate you. And hopefully you come and listen to the next episode faster than Roman's hair grows back. Yes, I'm talking to you and that buzz cut you got on the top of your head.
Give me 6 months. We'll be back to normal. I promise you. It's the first time in a long time that guy's had more hair than me.
Oh my goodness. You make it sound like I'm losing my hair. You see any bald spot?
Oh, that's all natural. It's looking really dark though, Moses. You got something to admit here?
I got gray hairs. You just got to find them. But they're
That's
in
what
there.
happens when you get the kid.
I think I've doubled the number of gray hairs I have since I had my son.
Probably did.
Meg's like,
That's
are you going to
so
take care of those? I said, heck no. I'm not taking care of these.
You're just gonna just leave it?
Bro, if I go gray, I go gray. What do I got to lose?
Really?
I think I got the confidence to pull off a little salt and pepper if it comes in. I'm just saying.
Ah, you do. You do. Like a couple streaks.
Yeah.
Keeps it gray.
I'll have a little Maverick Carter look. Yeah. Yeah. Little gray in the hair, buzzed beard. That's probably going to be me.
I could picture 40-year-old you right now. Whoa.
Hey, man. Whoa. Hey. That was
40 crazy.
that 40's crazy. Sir.
That means I'm in my early 30s.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Switch List podcast. Catch us on social, and we'll see you next week.